Welcome back to True Story with John Gibson. Today we have a special guest, Shay Eskew. Shay, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, man, it's just an honor to be here with you and be able to speak to your audience.
My man, completely my pleasure. So if you're not familiar with Shay, this man has been inspiring me for years, like quite legitimately. I have the benefit of having met this guy, I think, before he got famous a little bit, but right before he got famous. Truly remarkable story, man. Your journey is absolutely one of a kind. You excel in so many things. It's almost aggravating. Like, how could you be good at so much? But man, truly, you really do inspire me. And I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing a little bit about your life and story with all of us.
You know, I think we all have a story, and I think that's what bonds us together. Like, I'll never forget you and I sharing that flight to Florida for a healthcare conference, right? Like those 2 hours we shared together, I was like, man, how did I spend so much time with this guy and not know his story?
Yeah, right.
It's amazing. Like, once you know people's story, just open your eyes. You're like, man, what if everybody knew this story, right? And since then, everybody does know your story.
Right.
And I think it's really changed a lot of things. So
yeah, I appreciate that. Likewise, though, like literally I share that same sentiment 100%. I remember echoing those same thoughts. Like, how did I not know this about this man? And then same thing, you've had subsequently, your book has come out, you're like a bestseller, man. You've really excelled in Ironman, all these other things. So I feel like a lot of people have come to learn your story as well. But for those that aren't aware, man, can we start a little bit around when your childhood and sort of when the trajectory of your life maybe changed quite a bit? And
yeah, absolutely. It's funny because historically, I would have thought that was a tragic event. August 4th, 1982. I was 8 years old, normal kid, did well in school, pretty good athlete, you know. Mm-hmm. And my mom had asked me to warn my neighbors about an aggressive yellow jacket's nest. So I walked across the street to notify them. I was accompanied by my 7-year-old best friend. We knocked on the door. The dad wasn't home, but the 15-year-old daughter was. We tell her about this aggressive yellow jacket's nest. She then asked, hey, will you guys help me get rid of it? And I preface this by saying, man, I had the most conservative parents you ever met. If there was any chance of anything ever happening, I couldn't do it. Couldn't go to fireworks shows, spend the night parties, couldn't jump on trampolines, couldn't ride go-karts. And she said, can you guys help me get rid of this nest? And we said, what do you need us to do? She goes, just stand here. I was like, I can handle that, right?
Yeah, sure.
Before we knew it, she grabs a match, throws it down on the ground because that's where this nest is, but nothing happens. And as we're standing there, we're watching these yellow jackets fly in and out of this nest. All of a sudden, we feel something splash. The right side of my face, the left side of my buddy's face hits that match. And instantly we knew what it was. Ugh. Gasoline. She had thrown a cup of gasoline, not realizing that match was still lit. My entire body was covered in flames. Luckily, I had the wherewithal. Stop, drop, and roll, put mine out. And then I got a hose and put my buddy out. And if anybody knows the story of burn survivors, there's a lot of infection. I mean, it's just a long path. I spent 3 months in the hospital. My right ear had to be amputated. My right arm was permanently melted to my body. It took 3 years to lift over my head. Had learned how to write left-handed to finish the 3rd grade. Was told I'd never compete in sports again. And honestly, for all intents and purposes, I mean, it felt like life was over.
Sure.
Right? I mean, you're 8 and you're told you never play sports again. That's like saying, hey, John, you'll never have chocolate ice cream again. Right, whether you like it or not, the moment somebody says you can't have something, you want it.
Right.
And so for the last 40 years, that's what I've been doing, is focus on rebuilding my life and reclaiming my life as an athlete. And I've been blessed to compete at a pretty high level in a lot of different sports, wrestling, boxing, and then most recently in Ironman. But, you know, the thing I'm most proud of, married 19 years. I've got 5 kids under 16. And that's what I want to speak to my legacy, right?
Yes, absolutely. Beautiful, man, beautiful. Again, you've been inspiring me for years, man. This is exactly why. Man, beautiful words. Thank you for sharing that, of course. Switching gears just a little bit, really ever so slightly. Can we talk a little bit about your book, the process of writing it, like why you chose to write it, and maybe how that changed your life too after sharing this and some more of your story? I mean, you were extremely successful in business. You timed it almost perfectly, and you can share a little of that story as well too.
Yeah.
But you've had a very interesting life.
I'd love to say writing the book was something I had planned all along. I think I had thought about it, but never really could conceive how I'd carve out time to do something like that. Knew nothing about the process. But I'm also a believer that God puts people in our life at the time we need them most. Mm-hmm. And they have a very subtle way of speaking to you to get you to do things that will have a very impactful impact, on your life. And so for me, it was in 2017, was changing jobs. And I'll never forget, the president of the company said, look, you need to meet this guy named Jack Daly. I think he's going to talk you out of doing what you want to do. I wanted to quit my sales job to pursue a leadership role. So I reached out to this guy, Jack Daly. And if you guys don't know him, also a very impactful guy, retired Army captain, done 100 marathons, all 7 continents. I mean, the guy's just truly life achiever. So I reached out to him and he agreed to meet me for dinner. And we're sitting down talking over dinner. He said, Shay, let's cut to the chase. Why are we here tonight? And he's one of those guys that just speaks direct to your heart, right? There's no BS, just straight to it. I said, honestly, Jack, my president was hoping you would taught me out of doing what I've already done. I quit my sales job to pursue a leadership role. He said, Shay, I have no doubt you made the right decision. The question I got for you is, when are you writing your dang book? And I looked at him, I said, Jack, man, I'm super busy. I've got 5 kids. I travel for work. I compete in Ironman. And I said, I'm one of those, if I can't commit 100%, I don't want to do something. Right. I don't want to just half do it. He said, Shay, that's complete crap. I've written 3 bestsellers. I travel 300, days a year. He said, here's what's going to happen. When I leave this dinner, I'm going to introduce you to this guy, Adam Whitty of Advantage Books. Here's how much it's going to cost you. 8 months, you're going to have a bestseller, and you're going to call me to thank me for writing your book. So I called my wife on the way home from dinner. Now I'm one of those, when these kind of things happen, I take action. Like I really feel like somebody's just really tugging at my heart to do something. And I said, hey, love, had a great dinner. And I said, but I'm going to write my book. She said, what are you talking about? I said, I'm going to write my book. At dinner, Jack told me I need to write it. He outlined it. Here's how much it's going to cost. And she goes, I know I can't talk you out of doing it. You've already made your mind up. Can we afford to do it? I said, babe, we can't afford not to. Then she goes, I'm behind you 100%. The next day, that call happened. I signed the deal. Sure enough, 8 months later, the book is done. And it's been a game changer. And, one of the things I realized, John, and I know you know this, we all have a story. We're all battling something mentally, physically, spiritually, financially. And it's not to compare what we're going through with what somebody else is going through, but we all can relate in some way, right? Sure. Mine happened to be a lot of physical, but there was a lot of emotional stuff you couldn't see, and I never talked about to anyone. Right. But I felt like when you sat down to write the book, you could kind of pour your heart into it. And so for me, it was a very, very cathartic exercise. I mean, I remember literally just crying, writing the pages. Oh, I'm sure. You're reliving stuff you never talked about. Yeah, I'm interviewing my parents. Say, hey, look, here's my recollection of something, and they fill in some of the gaps, and you're just like, wow. Because you realize there's a lot that your brain kind of pushes out because it's a survival mechanism, right? Of course, yeah. But when they would mention, I was like, oh, yeah, I remember that. But it's just things you just buried so far down, you didn't ever want to touch it. You were happy just leaving it down there. Sure, yeah. But then you realize when you start digging down and uncovering these wounds, how impactful it can be for others and helping them get through it. And so that's what I've taken joy out of is other people reaching out and saying, hey, thank you. I was battling cancer. I was going through a divorce. I lost a loved one. You name it. I found strength in your journey, and here's how I've applied it to mine. It's really amazing that you share that, because I think over the years too,
I've taken a lot from your writings and you just sharing a lot of your experience personally. And I mean, and what I mean from that is I've gained a lot from you being open and sharing those experiences. And I really appreciate so much how you've always approached these things with a sense of humor. You know, hey, I forgot my ear here and check this out. And that's something that helps make you way more approachable, and these things that makes it a little easier to kind of soften that, and or sharing really significant things from your childhood. You know, someone kids calling you Freddy Krueger, awful,
Yeah.
like, awful, heartbreaking. You know, when I read that, whether I knew you or not, I was ready to get a time machine and beat those kids up, man. I was moved by it. And I appreciate you sharing that, because we've all been there in some capacity. Like you said, we've all been bullied, you know, we understand that, you know, and it was just an amazing, you know, I think and special thing that you were open to sharing that. And I'm glad it's been a game changer for you. But I think that an amazing part of your story too, is that not only were you able to physically overcomes that huge adversity, like just again learning to lift your arm up, right, these things that were tremendous in their own right, you became a pretty exceptional athlete. And even as a grown man with a wife, a full-time job, 5 children, you've excelled in Ironman, which is not an easy sport for someone to dabble in, right? So here's the question: how did you get involved in Ironman, and where is it that you think that what's been so special about your success? What's the recipe? How did you, you know, what have you applied? What have you done to excel?
You know, it's funny you ask that, because over time you have the benefit of looking back, right? And what I realized was, as a result of the scars, I've got scars 65+% of my body. I lost the ability to be competitive in sports that required finesse or touch. But if there was a sport that required all-out effort wins, last man standing, whoever had the highest pain threshold, those are ones I did well in: boxing, wrestling, and Ironman. Like in Ironman, we live by the mantra, it's not who's the fastest, it's who slows down the least. And that is what's so true in life. Like, some people come out of the starting blocks very fast, but can you hold that pace?
Yeah.
You know, and what I realized was, as a result of what I went through getting burned, a lot of people don't realize this, but in the early 80s, we didn't get pain medication.
Oh my
right?
God.
They amputated most of my ear while I was awake with a pair of scissors. And people say, man, that's just horrible. How could you ever do that? But you look back later now and say, I never had any addiction to opioids. I didn't have to worry about it. I have a very high pain threshold now. And that is what has prepared me to do well in the sports that I've done well in.
Wow, isn't that amazing? Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
But as far as how I got introduced to Ironman, again, it's kind of one of those God things where he put someone in my life. I'll never forget it. It was 2007. I was in the weight room in a big high rise where I worked. And every day in the morning, I go in there and work out. Like most guys, I focused on the gun shows, right? It's all about
of course.
biceps, big chest. How good do you look in a t-shirt?
Right.
And man, this may be hard to believe, but I was 43 pounds bigger than I am now.
Wow.
On a 5'7" frame, that's not very sexy.
Yeah, that's a big guy. Yeah.
I thought it was, but dude, I could throw some weight up. So that's all that mattered. But anyway, I'll never forget. I'm in the dressing room about to head out into the weight room, and this 65-year-old man, he's got a flat top, barrel chested guy. And he looks at me and goes, hey, tough guy. I said, you talking to me? He said, yeah, I'm talking to you. He said, why don't you come in here in my little boot camp class? Just me and a bunch of ladies. Shouldn't be anything for a guy like you with all your muscles. And I'm looking, I'm like, man, old timer, you don't know what you know, who you're talking to. Man, I get in there in 3 minutes, I'm in tears because all we're doing is core, leg lifts, planks, right?
Yeah.
None of the stuff I've done probably since grade school. And then the last 10 minutes, he goes, all right, 4 count push-ups. I'm like, all right, it's on now. Now we're finally doing something I can be competitive. Mm-hmm. But my core was so weak, I just couldn't hang. This guy drops beside me and he starts yelling, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2. And he goes, Eskew, pick it up. Ponytails is kicking your butt, boy. And the only thing I could say is, yes, sir.
Right.
You know, I was so embarrassed.
Right.
And I remember I snuck out of the weight room, went home that night, told my wife, I said, you're not going to believe this, but I got my butt kicked today by a 65-year-old man. I said, it's on. There is no way he's getting the last word in this. I was back in his class every single day for the next 2 months, dropped 20 pounds, got back into fighting shape. And it was then I learned this guy was one of the original Ironmen from 1978.
Whoa.
He was one of the 13 finishers. He was also a Marine drill sergeant.
Right. I was wondering that. Yeah.
He was also running on average 8 to 10 miles a day. I mean, the guy was just, he did an Ironman at 62.
Beast. Yeah.
And then right after that, he got diagnosed stage 4 pancreatic. And me and him became good friends. We'd talk after class. We'd sit in the sauna and we'd talk about the uncertainties of life, right? Him getting diagnosed with cancer, me getting burned. None of this had anything to do with something we did. It's just life.
Right.
We talked about that's life. You can't play the victim card and feel sorry for yourself.
That's right.
You got to make the most of the cards you've been dealt. And so Henry Forrest, that's his name, he made it almost a year. We thought he kicked it, and then the cancer came back with a fury, took him out in a matter of 2 weeks. And right before he passed, a group of us said, Henry, we're going to do the next big triathlon. We don't care the distance to honor you. And so as soon as he passed, we signed up for an Ironman, half Ironman event. I didn't own a bike, hadn't ran really since high school, had never swam.
Wow.
So I bought a $500 bike off Craigslist, got swim lessons, and started running. And, 4 months later, I did the race. And when I finished, I was like, man, that wasn't so bad. And so I signed up for the full Ironman the next day. And 4 months later, did the event, finished, I think, top 15%.
Wow.
But a day before the race, I ran into Henry's daughter. She said, Shay, Daddy's going to be watching you tomorrow. And I said, I know. She goes, no, Shay, this is the 1 year anniversary of him passing, right? I didn't even dawn on me. Like, I just went with the spirit, what was leading me.
Yeah.
And it just kind of stuck, right? And after that race, I was like, you know what? This is my calling. This is what I need to be doing. And here I am. I've done now 43 of these Ironman and Ironman 70.3 events, raced on 6 continents, got to race in Israel in November. Dude, we got to swim, bike, and run at the Sea of Galilee.
Yeah, amazing.
Like, it doesn't get more majestic than that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, and you have come so far. Do you mind sharing a little bit about 7X? Because that sounds like a really, really exciting endeavor you have coming up. And I mean, you talk about if that's where you started, look what you have ahead.
Yeah, it's crazy. So 2 years ago in the height of COVID, I got introduced to a Navy SEAL, Ryan Birdman Parrott. He and I kind of bonded. He's got a nonprofit called Sons of the Flag, and it's a burn foundation focused on veterans. And then they expanded their care to focus on civilians. So with them, I had a surgery this past January. But as part of that, he said, listen, I want you to help me celebrate my birthday coming up, my 40th. But we want to do something so unbelievable that's never been attempted. And we're going to study and document everything so it can be applied to combat situations to help current military adapt. So it's called Human Performance 7X. We're starting in Antarctica. They're going to skydive, not me, but they're skydiving out. When they land, I'm going to pace them on a marathon, and we're going to swim. So we got sea, air, land. Then we're going to go straight from Antarctica to Africa to Australia. We're going to do all 7 continents in 7 days. Amazing. So this is slated for February of 23.
Amazing. I cannot wait to see that unfold. 7 continents, 7 days. Are you guys notifying Guinness Book of World Records now, or are you going to wait till after?
Well, so they have done before 7 marathons in 7 days, but nobody's ever done it with the skydiving or base jumping and all the other components.
It's amazing.
So Birdman's handling all that. I mean, the logistics, as you can imagine, is so we're like, nobody's ever skydived in Antarctica, period.
Oh my gosh. Navy SEALs, man, these guys.
Like when he started telling me, I was like, sure, all right, whatever, man. And then he starts telling me all the details, the team he's assembled. Just like, dude, yeah, sign me up. I just want to be a part of it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, what an amazing opportunity. Yeah, amazing. It's so wild how far life can take you, you know, when you take advantage of opportunities and you put yourself out there. You're a worker, man. Before I let you go, I want to ask you this too, because I mean, this is a sincere question for me, and hopefully everybody can benefit. But how do you recharge? Because you're really high output. You're up every morning. It's cardio. It's like sunrise cardio. Again, father, husband. That's a lot of responsibility. You have a thriving career, and then all the athletic stuff. So, like, how do you do it? How do you pull that off?
Yeah. So for me, it's a couple ways. Like, I'm a big believer in experiences, right? So I don't believe in, hey, let's just go to the beach and hang out for 2-3 days. I'm not interested whatsoever. But I am up for an epic vacation. So, like, you know, we're doing an 11-day trip to Italy. And that's what motivates me and makes me have a higher purpose. It's like just having your kids with you.
Yeah.
Taking these kind of experiences. And so that's what I live for. So we always plan 2 big trips a year.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And so that's always that kind of, I got one at Christmas. We go snowboarding every year, right around Christmas.
Okay.
And then we generally will do either a trip abroad or go to the mountains in Colorado or somewhere in the summer.
No, I love that concept. I mean, it's a good way of giving yourself balance and prioritizing the family. Yeah.
Right. And so it's one of those, like, you can push through all the hard times because, you know, hey, look, 6 months from now, completely just, recharge, separate. And for me, just being in nature is a great way to reset it. You know, I don't know if you knew this earlier, but my undergrad was wildlife. So I spent 6 months living in the woods, trapping bears for a living. Before I got into
No, I did not. Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Because I thought, who else gets this opportunity, right? To live in the woods and trap bears. We didn't harm them. You know, we would just tag them, take measurements, and let them go. But man, once you get to experience life and nature on that level, everything just looks completely different. And I think one of the things that you would agree is, through all the rebuilding and recoveries we've went through, it gives you a much greater appreciation for what you have and being able to use it every single day. Like before every surgery, you'll find me working out in the hospital room. Because I tell myself, look, when I wake up, if I can't do push-ups, I'm okay with it because I did them right before the surgery.
I understand that very much.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
You know,
yes.
I mean, it drives my wife crazy, but I'm like, hey, what if this is the last time I get to do a push-up?
Yeah.
Right. I want this memory.
Right. Yeah. And you have a very unique, well, most athletes at some point are going to get injured, but you've had enough injuries that are detrimental enough, serious enough to where, of course, you have an appreciation for what you could have lost and what it takes to regain, you know, to have a long rehab. It's very different than just someone like, oh, I rested for a couple weeks. You know,
I think it also comes from a sense of gratitude, saying that, look, even after some of these recoveries, you don't fully regain what you had.
Oh, of course. Yes.
But you take comfort and pride in knowing, hey, look, when I had it, I made the most of it.
That's
right.
True. Yeah, I like that.
I didn't waste it. I didn't try to bottle it up and say, hey, I'm going to wait 5 years and that's when I'm going to do it. Because from what I've seen, those 5 years may never come.
Right.
So I'm going to make the most of what I got today. And whatever happens, I'm okay with it.
Man, you have such wisdom. It's amazing. Like, I can't wait to see how your story continues to unfold and what other epic adventures you take advantage of. I really cannot wait. Please continue to keep writing too and sharing. I think the way that your mind works is something that we can all benefit from. Kind of in closing, are there any kind of final words you'd like to share? And also, from just a contact perspective, if people have questions or want to reach you, what's the best method for them to contact you?
Yes, you can go to my website, Shay, Shay, Eskew.com. The book is What the Fire Ignited. And as far as parting words, I tell everybody to openly share your dreams. A lot of people are scared to put it out there because what if I don't hit it, right? You know, they don't want to be judged. But what you'll find is if you're willing to share it, people will come out of the woodwork to help you achieve it.
Yes.
People want to be a part of that journey. I've had complete strangers through LinkedIn fund me to go on these crazy epic adventures.
Amazing.
But it's just having the courage to put it out there, to be vulnerable. And when people try to steal your thunder and knock you down, tell you you're crazy, ignore them.
Mm-hmm.
Just realize they're probably jealous because they wish they had the courage to do what you're doing. And they're just trying to put their fears and insecurities on you, but don't let them sway you.
Beautiful. Amazing. Thank you again, Shay. This is awesome. I'll be sure to include all the links here as well, so everybody can reach you. Again, this was totally my pleasure. I feel really refueled from this conversation. So thank you again.
Hey, enjoyed it, my brother. Hope to see you soon.
Likewise. Again, true story, John Gibson. Today's guest, Shay Eskew.